Dear students, I welcome you in the online classes organized by ISP. I am going to teach you the subject of research methodology. Dear students, this is our lecture number 9 on this subject. Let us connect our today's lecture with our previous knowledge in this subject. Dear students, now you are well aware that we started our journey with the definition of research, and we also discussed the qualities of a good researcher as well as how should a good researcher plan his or her research. Dear students, we moved forward and we came to the methods that can be used in the process of research. We discussed a large number of methods, but as the student of literature, English literature and linguistics, we wanted to discuss those methods or methodologies which are relevant to language and literature. So, for the number of previous lectures, we focused our attention to those methodologies which are specific for literature and then for language. Dear students, now I hope that you have in your mind the methodologies which are very specific for literature, and those among you who are interested in the research in the field of literature, they should keep these methodologies in mind, and with the passage of time they should get more and more knowledge about these methodologies, and when they would be able to select the area of their research and their topic, I hope this practice would go a long way and it would help them to select a proper method for their research. Dear students, similarly, there are so many among you who are interested in research in the field of language and linguistics. So, we have discussed certain methodologies which are very specific for language. Now, dear students, there are certain areas which are common to both research in literature and language. And these areas are very interesting. And these areas have potential and scope for future research. For example, we discussed stylistics. We discussed critical discourse analysis. We discussed corpus linguistics. So these are such areas which are lying on the borders of both literature and linguistics. And perhaps there would be many of you who would have interest in these areas as well. After discussing these methods, dear students, now we have a platform, a very sound and strong platform, and from this platform now we can move forward. And now from this lecture number 9, we are entering into the practical side of this component of our course. And the first topic of this practical aspect of this course is hypothesis and its forms. So, dear students, our today lecture would focus on hypothesis and its forms. So, let us have a look on the lecture outlines. We are going to define hypothesis. I know many of you will have already the knowledge of this term. Then we would discuss salient features of hypothesis. Then what could be the sources of hypothesis? What are those sources with the help of which we can generate hypothesis? Then characteristics of hypothesis. What should be the qualities or characteristics of hypothesis, of good hypothesis? Then what are different types, kinds or forms of hypothesis? How can we test hypothesis? And at the end, dear students, I would like to set an exercise for you as usual. Now, what is hypothesis? We are going to define this term. It is a tentative supposition or provisional guess which seems to explain the situation under observation. It is also a tentative generalization, the validity of which remains to be seen. So, dear students, it is a kind of a guess, a kind of a supposition, and it tries to explain the situation which is under our observation. And naturally, in research, we are face to face with some kind of problem. So actually, hypothesis is an idea or a guess or a supposition about the solution of that problem. We have not still researched that problem, and we have not drawn any conclusion about the solution of that problem. But just at the start of our research, we form a tentative kind of solution of that problem. Now, it is a kind of generalization as well, but we have to test its validity in the time to come. So it is just a generalization of the solution of that problem or of the solution of that situation, and we are going to test its validity later on. The other definition is the research or scientific hypothesis is a formal affirmative statement predicting a single research outcome or a tentative explanation of the relationship between two or more variables. So, dear students, again, it is a research or scientific supposition, and it is affirmative statement, positive kind of statement about the solution of that problem, about the understanding of that situation, and it always predicts a single solution. And it means that hypothesis does not point out one hypothesis, does not point out towards many solutions. Then we know that in research there are two or more variables involved, and we have gone through and we have explained these variables. For example, we say that as the sun rises in the sky, the temperature increases. So here the two variables are involved. On one hand is the rise of the sun, movement of the sun in the sky, and the other variable is the temperature. So we have to get some kind of relationship between these two variables. Similarly, for example, I want to remind you this concept of variable, and I want to make it fresh in your mind. For example, we say that the reading comprehension of the girls is better than the reading comprehension of the boys. Now, here, reading comprehension is one variable, and the gender, that is boys and the girls, are the other variables. So hypothesis explains the relationship between two or more variables. For example, in the same case, as we have taken the example of reading comprehension of girls and boys, then our hypothesis should be of such nature that it should explain the relationship of these two variables, that is boys and girls, with the reading comprehension. And it was the definition given by Best in 1986. Here are some examples of hypothesis, and you will also note a kind of language that we use in hypothesis. Dear students, in months to come, you are going to start this practice, and you should note very minutely all the points. So not only you will have to understand what is hypothesis, but you should also focus the language that normally we use, and this is the technical kind of language, because you are going to write a proposal, then you are going to write a thesis, and we use certain terminologies and certain specific kind of language for such purpose. Example 1. It is hypothesized that the first grade girls will show better reading comprehension than first grade boys. So this is first hypothesis, and the hypothesis is that we have taken the population of first grade girls and first grade boys, and we want to compare their reading comprehension, and we have supposed, now this is hypothesis, we have supposed that the girls can show better reading comprehension as compared to the boys. Now we have to check this hypothesis, we have to test this hypothesis, and naturally we will design a methodology that could make this test, and then we will move forward, and at the end we will see whether this hypothesis is accepted or it is rejected. Number 2, it is hypothesized that an ideology is working behind the novels Islam Quintet of Tariq Ali. Now this is related to literature, and Tariq Ali has written novels, and we are taking only 5 novels for our research, and these 5 novels are known as Islam Quintet. And we have hypothesized that an ideology is working behind these 5 novels written by Tariq Ali. Again, we have to devise a methodology in order to test this hypothesis. Number 3, it is hypothesized that the Pakistani students overuse the English articles. The English articles we know are and the. So our hypothesis in this research is that Pakistani students are in the habit of overusing these English articles. They use the where it is not needed, or they use a when it is not needed. So they are making overuse of these English articles. Again, we have to devise a methodology to test this hypothesis. Number 4, it is hypothesized that the telecom companies use humor in the ads to attract the customers. We know that there are so many telecom companies working in our country, and what we want to test, we are hypothesizing that in their ads, and we have watched these ads on the TV screen, in these ads they use humor, that they use such kind of character and such kind of language which is humorous, or these characters are humorous, and they are using this element of humor in order to attract the customers. So this is our hypothesis. Again, we have to design and select a suitable methodology to test this hypothesis. With these 4 examples, dear student, I hope you will have enough idea how to write hypothesis and what is actually hypothesis. Now, what are the salient features of hypothesis? 1. Provision of direction to the research. As you see in the last 4 examples, as soon as we will hypothesize about the problem or about the situation or about the research, it will focus us and give us a certain direction. 2. Differentiate between precision and haphazardness. Because if we will not have any kind of hypothesis or such kind of supposition, then our work and our research will be haphazard. It will not be organized and systematic. So our hypothesis gives us direction as well as precision, and it gives us a system and focus. 3. Prevents the collection of irrelevant data. Now, when we have hypothesized about our research, then naturally we will focus and we have certain direction. It will save us from collecting irrelevant data. 4. Prevents overlooking of facts and conditions. Again, hypothesis has this quality, and it can help us to focus our attention on facts. 5. Serves as a framework for drawing conclusions. So after hypothesis, we will be clear and we will try to select a suitable methodology, and naturally, as we have got the direction, so we will work within a framework. We will be focused. Now, the function of our hypothesis is the development of theory. So that is one of the function, because if we test the hypothesis and this hypothesis is true at the end of our research, and if we can generalize this tested hypothesis, then it will get the status of theory. It states the parts of existing theory in testable form. Sometimes theory is already there. And what is the function of hypothesis? It is presenting the parts of that existing theory in such a way that they could be tested. And if they would be tested, the theory would be established. Now, Snow in 1973 describes 6 levels of theory. First level being hypothesis formation. So this is a very strong and sound connection between hypothesis and theory. As I have already mentioned that if your hypothesis is tested true, then it gets the status of theory. So Snow describes 6 levels of theory, and very first level is the formation of hypothesis. At this level, the researcher has a hunch based on past experience, observation, and information gained from others. So this hunch is actually the hypothesis, because as soon as the researcher is face to face with some problem, then he or she uses imagination, and he takes helps from past experience, his her observation, and information that he or she gets from others to form such kind of hunch. A hypothesis is formulated in such a way that the hunch may be tested. So this hunch, this idea, this imaginative idea should be formulated in such a way that it should be testable. Based upon the subsequent research, the hypothesis is supported or rejected. So hypothesis is never proved. It is sometimes accepted and sometimes it is rejected in the process of research. Now, what are the sources of hypothesis? From where these ideas come into our mind? First is general culture. Culture affects the society and contributes to its norms. Culture serves a great deal in the formation of a hypothesis. For example, we were taking the example of the overuse of English articles by the Pakistani students. We know that it is our second, sometimes it is third language of all of us. So all those people who learn second or third language, they have such kind of problems. And we have such kind of culture that we are living with more than 2 and even 3, 4 languages. So that contributes to our problems. That increases our problems in learning a specific kind of language. So that is why, and this is our culture. So this culture also serves and helps us in the formation of hypothesis. Scientific theory is another source of hypothesis. Various scientific theories and laws are transferable in the field of research. These theories and laws are helpful in the formation of hypotheses. So these scientific theories and laws, these are transferred into the field of research. Sometimes we test and validate these laws and theories. So these are also helpful in the formation of hypotheses. Personal experience. Some of our life experiences can be changed into a practical hypothesis for further research. So our observation, and we know, and at the very start of this component, of course, we had gone through the qualities of a good researcher. So a good researcher is a very minute observer, and he can or she can learn from his or her experiences. And sometimes these experiences change into the practical hypothesis for the solution of some problem. What should be the characteristics of hypothesis? Hypothesis should be compatible with the observed facts. It means that it should not go against our observation. We should not make any hunch or idea or hypothesis which is against our observed facts, then hypothesis is never in conflict with the law of nature. That is also very important, because you cannot say that the sun would rise in the west. That is against the law of nature. So our hypothesis should never go against the law of nature. Hypothesis should be furnished in proper terminology and suitable language. As I have already mentioned, that there is some specific terminology for writing proposal, writing thesis, similarly writing short of our research questions, as well as writing hypothesis. So we should make use of these terminologies, and we should use suitable language. It is a relationship between a deductive reasoning and inductive assumption. On one hand, we are making deductive reasoning by making such kind of hypothesis, and on the other hand is the research. So it is a kind of relationship. It should be applicable to testifiable models and should fulfill those relationships among the variables. So our hypothesis should be of such nature that we can apply some model to test it. Our hypothesis should not be of such nature that it would become untestable. So that is also very important. And as it explains a relationship among the variables, so when we will apply some testifiable model, then it will explain this kind of relationship. Another characteristics of a good hypothesis is it should be so designed that its test will provide the answer to the original problems which form the primary purpose of investigation. So primary purpose of investigation or our research is the solution of some problem. So it should be designed in such a way that when we would test it, automatically the answer of those problems should come to light. It should be stated in final form early in the experiment before any attempt at verification is made. So this is the place where it should be stated. It should be stated at the very early stage of our research, because it is going to be tested. It should not be stated at the end of our research or sometime in the mid of our research. It should be stated at the early stage of our research, and within the process of research we are going to test this hypothesis. What are the types of hypothesis? First is null form. This form of hypothesis states that no significant difference exists between the variable concerned. If there are two variables, for example, the null hypothesis will be of such kind of hypothesis that it will claim that there is no significant difference between these two variables. In this type of research, two different variables are tested and assumed to be found identical. So there would be not much difference between two variables. Such kind of hypothesis is called null form. Then predictable form. This form is used in the action research, where the researcher can easily state principles that may be expected to emerge from the experiment. So normally we have gone through the types of research, and one of them was action research. Predictable form of hypothesis is used in this kind of research, and in this hypothesis, even the researcher can state some rules and principles, and he or she believes that after the experiment these rules are expected to come out. The third is declarative form. This form is made by the researchers that certain similarities and differences are to be found significantly when the results will be found and tested. So this is declarative form. They declare in this hypothesis that there are certain similarities and differences between the variables. Question form. When the statement of the problem is in question form, then answers are to be found in affirmative or negative form. So sometimes we state our hypothesis in the question form. For example, is there any ideology working behind the novels of Tariq Ali? So this is the question form, and we have to find the answer of these questions. It may be positive or negative. Now, at the end of during the process of our research, we test hypothesis. A hypothesis is never proved. It is merely sustained or rejected. It is accepted or rejected. It is never proved. If it fails to meet the test of its validity, it must be modified or rejected. So we will have two options. If our hypothesis does not come to the standard of validity, then we have to change it, modify it, or it would be rejected. A hypothesis is useful in any case of its verification, that is accepted, rejected, partially accepted, and partially rejected. So these four might be the outcomes of verification, but still the hypothesis would be useful. It means that if the hypothesis even is fully rejected, still we have done something and we have researched something. A hypothesis can become theory when tested on certain mathematical models, sustained for its results, and generalized after logical and empirical tests. It has already been discussed that hypothesis can achieve the level of theory if it is tested on the basis of some mathematical models, and it sustains, it is accepted after that test. And similarly, if we can generalize on the basis of logical and empirical test, then it attains the level of theory. Dear students, that's all for today about the important topic of hypothesis. Now, you will have to solve this exercise on the basis of this lecture. Define hypothesis. What are the features, characteristics, and forms of hypothesis? Dear students, that's all from my side today. Stay safe, stay blessed.